The morning my son Kevin and his wife Natalie thought they won $75 million in the lottery, they told me, "Pack your bags, Mom. We need the space and frankly your disability check isn't worth the hassle anymore. Time to find a nursing home." They went white as sheets when I smiled and said, "Son, did you bother to check whose name is actually on that winning ticket? If you are watching this, please subscribe and let me know what state you are from in the comments. Let me take you back to where this beautiful story of justice begins. 6 weeks ago, on a cold February morning in Riverside, California, I was doing what I had done every Tuesday and Friday for the past 28 years. Buying my Mega Millions ticket at Rosa's Market on Magnolia Avenue. Same 6 numbers I had played since 1996. Same quiet prayer to whatever force might be listening. My name is Margaret Santos, but everyone calls me Maggie. I am 72 years old, a widow of 4 years, and living in what my son Kevin calls the converted garage of his house. Though most garages do not come with a monthly rent of $1,100. "Good morning, Mrs. Santos," called Carlos from behind the counter. At 30, he had taken over the family store from his father and still remembered when I used to bring Kevin in for ice cream after his Little League games. The usual numbers. "You know it," I replied, handing him my $10. Carlos printed my ticket with those familiar numbers. 8, 15, 22, 29, 41, and Megaball 12. 8 for the day I met my husband Roberto. 15 for Kevin's birthday. 22 for our wedding day. 29 for the house number where we raised Kevin. 41 for the years Roberto and I had together. 12 for Kevin's graduation from high school, when he was still the son I recognized. "Good luck today, Mrs. Santos," Carlos said with his usual kind smile. "You deserve some happiness." If only he knew how prophetic those words would turn out to be. Walking back to what I had to call home now, I passed the small house Roberto and I had owned for 38 years. The new owners had painted it beige and torn out Roberto's rose garden. He would have been heartbroken. Our little blue house with white trim had been his pride and joy. He always said it looked like a place where people who loved each other would live and grow old together. The irony was not lost on me that I was now living with a child we had raised in that house of love, and he treated me like an unwelcome burden who should be grateful for the privilege of paying his bills. Kevin's BMW was in the driveway when I arrived. Through the kitchen window, I could see him on his laptop, probably working on his construction business or planning another expensive weekend trip. He had built a successful contracting company, which made his treatment of me even more baffling. I let myself in through the side door that led directly to my converted garage space. 20 years ago, this had been Roberto's workshop. Now it was a bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette that Kevin rented to me for more than most people paid for actual apartments. The space smelled like paint and insulation, nothing like the sawdust and motor oil that had made it feel alive when Roberto worked here. "Maggie, is that you?" Kevin's voice carried that sharp edge it always had when he was annoyed, which seemed to be most of the time lately. "Just me," I called back, though I wanted to add, "Sorry for existing in your rental property." Kevin appeared in the doorway between my space and the main house. At 42, he looked older than his age, thanks to what he called the stress of running a business and what I suspected was too much drinking with his crew. His success in construction had given him a lifestyle that required constant cash flow to maintain. "We need to talk," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Natalie and I have been discussing your situation." My situation. That was how he referred to the fact that his disabled mother was living in his garage. "What about it?" I asked, settling into my one good chair. "Mom, you are 72 years old with mobility issues. Living alone in this space is not safe or practical anymore. What if you fall? What if something happens and no one finds you?" The concern in his voice might have fooled someone else, but I had been his mother for 42 years. This was not about my safety. "I get around just fine with my walker," I said. "And I am hardly alone with you and Natalie right here." Kevin sighed dramatically. "That is exactly the problem. Natalie and I need our privacy. We are thinking of starting a family, and having you here makes everything complicated." Starting a family. Kevin had been saying that for 3 years, ever since he married Natalie. It was his go-to excuse for everything that required me to be somewhere else. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though I was already dreading the answer. "There is a lovely, assisted living facility called Golden Years Manor. Very clean, lots of activities, people your own age. Natalie and I would visit all the time." Golden Years Manor. I knew that place. It was where people went to wait to die, and it cost $4,500 a month, which was exactly $300 more than my entire disability income. "Kevin, I cannot afford that kind of place." He had clearly prepared for this objection. "Mom, your disability check covers most of it, and Natalie and I would help with the difference. It would actually save us money in the long run." Save them money. Because apparently, letting me live in their garage for $1,100 a month was such a financial hardship. What if I do not want to move to Golden Years Manor? Kevin's mask of concern slipped just slightly. "Well, Mom, you have to be realistic about your options. You cannot live independently anymore, and this arrangement is not working for anyone." The arrangement. Roberto's workshop had become an arrangement. "I will think about it," I said, which was my way of buying time while I figured out how to survive on $200 a month after paying for assisted living. That night, I sat in Roberto's old chair looking at my lottery ticket. Those 6 numbers had become more than a twice-weekly ritual. They were hope, small and persistent, that someday I would have choices again. The winning numbers were announced Tuesday night at 11 p.m. on Channel 9. I was lying in bed reading a library book about a woman who inherited a farm when the lottery segment came on during the late news. "Tonight's Mega Millions jackpot is $75 million, announced the cheerful anchor. The winning numbers are 8, 15, 22, 29, 41, and Mega Ball 12. For a moment, my brain could not process what I had heard. Those were my numbers. My exact numbers, the ones I had been playing faithfully for 28 years. I fumbled for the remote, rewinding to hear the announcement again. 8, 15, 22, 29, 41, and Mega Ball 12. My hands were shaking as I reached for my purse, pulling out the lottery ticket with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy and weak. There they were, printed in black and white. 8-15-22-29-41 MB12. $75 million. I sat there staring at the ticket, waiting for reality to sink in. After 28 years of playing those same numbers, spending $520 a year I could barely afford, I had finally won. Not just won everything. My first instinct was to run to the main house and tell Kevin and Natalie, share this incredible news with family, celebrate this life-changing moment together. Then I remembered the conversation we had that morning about Golden Years Manor and how my living situation was not working for anyone. Maybe I should keep this information to myself for a little while, just until I figured out what winning $75 million meant for my future. I slipped the ticket back into my wallet, right behind Roberto's old driver's license that I could not bring myself to throw away, and turned off the TV. Sleep was impossible, but I lay in the dark for hours, planning. By dawn, I had the beginning of an idea that Roberto would have loved. Wednesday morning brought the usual chaos. Kevin was rushing around getting ready for a big job site while Natalie was on a conference call with her marketing clients. I made my coffee in my little kitchenette and watched through the window as they lived their busy, important lives. It was during this perfectly normal Wednesday morning routine that Natalie decided to tidy up the kitchen island, which included going through my purse to find the grocery coupons I had clipped from Sunday's paper. "Maggie, where did you put those detergent coupons?" she called, rifling through my belongings like it was perfectly normal to search someone else's purse. "They should be in the side pocket," I called back, focused on making myself toast on my hot plate. "Found them." "Oh my God, what is this?" Something in Natalie's voice made me look up. She was standing by the kitchen counter, holding my lottery ticket, her face completely white. "Is this... Did you buy a lottery ticket?" My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. "Buy 2 every week. Same numbers for 28 years. Natalie was staring at the ticket like it might explode. "Maggie, do you know what the winning numbers were last night?" Before I could answer, she was grabbing her phone, frantically Googling. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Kevin." Her scream brought Kevin running from the garage, still holding his work gloves. What's wrong? Did someone get hurt? The lottery ticket. Natalie thrust the ticket at him with trembling hands. Look at the numbers. Look at last night's drawing. Kevin took the ticket, frowning as he read the numbers. His frown deepened as Natalie showed him her phone screen with the winning combination. The silence in the kitchen stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Finally, Kevin looked up at me, his expression unreadable. Mom, do you understand what this means? I understood exactly what it meant. The only question was whether they did. The next 2 hours were complete chaos, and I watched it unfold from my chair at the kitchen table like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Natalie was pacing the kitchen, phone glued to her ear, calling what sounded like every person she had ever met. $75 million. Yes, million. We won the lottery. We won. That was interesting. We won. Kevin had taken the ticket from Natalie and was examining it under the kitchen light like a jeweler appraising a diamond. This is real, he kept muttering. This is actually real. $75 million. Natalie finished her phone calls and started pacing faster, her marketing brain kicking into overdrive. Okay, we need to call a financial advisor immediately. And a tax attorney. The claiming process is complicated and there are deadlines. Kevin, cancel your meetings today. This changes everything. Everything for whom? I wondered silently. Mom, Kevin said, still holding my ticket. This is incredible. Life-changing. We need to make some decisions about how to handle this. There was that word again. What kind of decisions? I asked carefully. Well, for starters, Natalie said, her voice taking on the tone she used with difficult clients, we need to think about the media attention. Lottery winners get harassed constantly. You will need protection, management, someone to handle all the complications that come with this kind of money. The complications of my own money, I thought. And living arrangements, Kevin added. Obviously, this changes everything about the assisted living discussion. With this kind of money, we could look at really high-end facilities, the kind with golf courses and spas. Still trying to get rid of me, I noticed, just with more expensive accommodations now. Or better yet, Natalie chimed in, her eyes lighting up with an idea. We could buy a bigger house. Something with a proper in-law suite for Maggie. Completely separate but connected. Everyone gets their privacy. A bigger house that they would own and I would live in as their dependent. The more things changed, the more they stayed the same. There is just one small detail we should probably discuss, I said quietly. Both of them turned to look at me, expressions expectant and slightly impatient, like parents listening to a child who was interrupting adult conversation. The lottery ticket is in my name. The silence that followed was different from before. This was not the shocked silence of unexpected good news. This was the horrified silence of people realizing they had made a terrible assumption. What do you mean? Kevin asked slowly. I held out my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, he placed the ticket in my palm. I mean that I bought this ticket with my money, from my purse, using the numbers I have played for 28 years, which makes it mine. Natalie's face went through several fascinating color changes. But you live here. We are family. That money, it changes everything for all of us. No, I said, standing up from the kitchen table with more dignity than I had felt in 4 years. Changes everything for me. The look of dawning realization on their faces was something I knew I would treasure for years to come. The moment they understood that their garage tenant, their soon-to-be nursing home resident, their convenient source of monthly rent money, had just become independently wealthy. And they were about to find out that $75 million could buy a lot more than a nice house. Could buy freedom. Could buy justice. And it could buy the most satisfying revenge a mother had ever served to ungrateful children. The kitchen fell so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming and the neighbor's dog barking outside. Kevin and Natalie stood frozen like someone had just announced that gravity was optional. Mom, Kevin said carefully, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Yes, technically the ticket is in your name, but we are family. We share things. We support each other. I almost laughed out loud. Support each other. Like when they supported me by charging me $1,100 a month to live in their garage. Or when they supported me by planning to ship me off to Golden Years Manor. You are absolutely right, I said sweetly. We do support each other, which is why I have been supporting you with my disability check every month while doing all your housework and yard work for free. Natalie's business brain was working overtime. I could see it in her eyes. She was calculating, strategizing, looking for an angle. Maggie, honey, she said, using the voice she reserved for her most important clients, I think there has been a misunderstanding about our living arrangement. The monthly contribution you make, that is not rent. That is just your share of household expenses. We have never thought of you as a tenant. Is that so? I tucked the lottery ticket back into my wallet with deliberate care. Then I suppose you will not mind if I stop contributing to household expenses immediately, since I am family, not a tenant. Kevin stepped forward, hands raised like he was dealing with a potentially dangerous animal. Mom, let's all take a breath here. This is huge news. Life-changing news. We need to think through the implications carefully. Oh, I have been thinking, I said, for about 9 hours now since I saw those numbers last night, and I have come to some interesting conclusions. Natalie's fake smile was starting to crack around the edges. What kind of conclusions? Well, for starters, I concluded that $75 million is enough money to live very comfortably for the rest of my life without depending on anyone else for housing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You are not serious, Kevin whispered. You would not just leave. Not after everything we have done for you. Everything they had done for me. Like taking my money every month while treating me like hired help. Like planning to move me to an assisted living facility because my presence in their lives had become inconvenient. I am very serious, I said. In fact, I am planning to call the lottery office first thing Thursday morning to claim my prize, and then I am going to start looking for a place of my own. Kevin was starting to panic. I could see it in the way he kept running his hands through his hair. Mom, you cannot make decisions like this when you are emotional. This is too big, too complicated. You need help managing this kind of money. From whom? You. Us. From us. We are your family. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. When had Kevin become someone who thought I was too incompetent to manage my own affairs? When had he decided that being my child gave him rights to my choices? Kevin, I said quietly, when your father was dying, do you know what he made me promise? Both of them went very still. He made me promise that I would not let anyone take advantage of my kindness. He said people would try, especially family, because they would assume I was too polite or too weak to stand up for myself. The silence stretched until Natalie finally cleared her throat. Maggie, I think you are overreacting to what was basically a miscommunication. Am I? I reached into my purse and pulled out a small notebook. Let me share some numbers with you. Over the past 4 years, I have paid you $52,800 in household expenses. I have provided approximately 2,000 hours of unpaid housework and yard maintenance. I have cooked roughly 500 meals and done about 1,200 loads of laundry. Kevin's face was getting redder with each number. In return, you have given me a converted garage that you were planning to trade for a nursing home room. That is not generosity, son. That is exploitation. The word hung in the air like smoke. And now, I continued, standing up and smoothing my sweater, I have the resources to explore other options. Thursday morning arrived with Natalie in full crisis management mode. She had obviously spent the night strategizing because she greeted me at the breakfast table with a 3-ring binder and her most professional smile. I have been doing some research, she announced, opening the binder to reveal printed articles about lottery winners. Did you know that 78% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years? I poured myself coffee and settled in to watch the show. Is that so? Absolutely. The statistics are terrifying. Poor financial decisions, bad investments, family members taking advantage. It is a complete disaster for most people. She flipped through pages of highlighted text. That is why you need professional guidance. Family guidance. Kevin appeared in the doorway, looking like he had not slept well. Mom, Natalie is right. This is way too big for any one person to handle alone, especially someone your age. No offense, Maggie, Natalie added helpfully, but managing $75 million requires expertise in tax law, investment strategy, estate planning. It is incredibly complex. I took a sip of coffee and studied their earnest faces. They had clearly spent considerable time preparing this intervention, working out their talking points and strategy. It was almost touching how much effort they were putting into convincing me I was incompetent. "You have given this a lot of thought," I observed. "We care about you," Kevin said. "We do not want to see you make mistakes that could ruin your financial security." "What kind of mistakes?" Natalie leaned forward, sensing an opening. "Well, for instance, buying a house without understanding the tax implications, or making large purchases without considering how they affect your long-term cash flow, or trusting the wrong people with your money." "The wrong people," I repeated. "Like whom?" "Like financial advisors who charge huge fees, or investment managers who push risky products, or family members who might try to take advantage of your generosity," Natalie said, apparently without any sense of irony. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate precision. "Natalie, let me ask you something. When I moved in here, did you research the average cost of assisted living facilities in our area?" Her eyes flickered with something that might have been guilt. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did you look up what it would cost me to live somewhere else so you could price my room and board competitively?" Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we never thought of it that way." "Because I did some research myself yesterday," I continued. "The average cost of a private room in a quality assisted living facility around here is about $2,200 a month. That includes meals, housekeeping, activities, and medical support." Natalie was very quiet now. "You have been charging me $1,100 for a garage and the privilege of doing my own housework, cooking, and yard work. That is not family helping family. That is a business arrangement, and not even a fair one." "It is not about money," Kevin said desperately. "It is about family, about staying together." "Is it? Then why were you planning to move me to Golden Years Manor?" Neither of them had an answer for that. I closed Natalie's binder and slid it back across the table. "I appreciate your concern about lottery winners going bankrupt, but I think you are worried about the wrong person making poor financial decisions." Natalie's professional composure was starting to crack. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means that in the past 4 years, I have been subsidizing your lifestyle to the tune of about $30,000. Meanwhile, you have been planning home improvements, taking vacations, and buying new cars while charging your elderly mother-in-law market rate rent for substandard accommodations." Kevin looked genuinely confused. "Substandard? Mom, this is a nice house. With no privacy, no independence, and landlords who treat me like domestic help," I replied. "But that is all about to change." "Where are you going?" Natalie asked sharply. "Call my lawyer." The look of panic that crossed both their faces was something I would remember for a long, long time. By Friday afternoon, news of my lottery win had spread through Riverside like wildfire. Carlos at Rosa's Market had apparently put 2 and 2 together when he saw the winning numbers announced, and by noon, there were 4 news vans parked outside Kevin and Natalie's house. I watched from my garage window as reporters knocked on the front door, asking for interviews with the mystery millionaire. Natalie had taken to answering the door with her hair perfectly styled and her brightest smile, clearly hoping to be featured in the coverage. "Mrs. Santos is resting and not available for comment right now," she told the Channel 7 reporter. "But as her family, we are just so excited for this blessing in all our lives." All our lives. That phrase was becoming Natalie's favorite. My phone had been ringing constantly since 10 a.m. Old friends from church, former co-workers from the school district where I had worked as a secretary before retirement, even my sister Carmen from Phoenix. Everyone wanted to congratulate me, share in my excitement, and inevitably ask what I was planning to do with the money. What I was planning to do was meet with Thomas Rodriguez, the lawyer Roberto and I had used for our wills and estate planning. Thomas was expecting me at 3 p.m., and I was looking forward to the conversation. "Maggie, you cannot leave the house right now," Natalie said, intercepting me as I headed for the side door with my purse and car keys. "There are reporters everywhere. They will mob you." "I have an appointment," I replied calmly. "Can it not wait? At least until the media attention dies down." Kevin appeared beside his wife, both of them blocking my path like concerned bodyguards. "No, it cannot wait. Mom, be reasonable. You are not equipped to handle this kind of media circus. Let us help you navigate this. Navigate. Another one of Natalie's corporate terms. I have been navigating my own life for 72 years, I said. I think I can manage a walk to my car. But when I opened the side door, I understood their concern. There were indeed reporters crowding the driveway, cameras and microphones at the ready. The moment they saw me, they surged forward like a pack of excited puppies. Mrs. Santos, how does it feel to win $75 million? What are you planning to do with the money? Is it true you have been playing the same numbers for almost 30 years? I paused by my car, looking out at the sea of expectant faces. Behind me, I could feel Kevin and Natalie hovering, probably hoping I would retreat back into the garage, where they could continue their campaign to manage my newfound fortune. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and walked to my car with as much dignity as I could muster. I am very grateful for this blessing, I told the reporters, stopping beside my car. As for what I am planning to do with the money, I am going to use it to live independently and make my own choices for the first time in 4 years. What do you mean by that, Mrs. Santos? I looked back at the house where Kevin and Natalie stood framed in the doorway, and something settled into place inside me. Something that felt like clarity and strength and long overdue honesty. I mean that sometimes in life you discover that the people you trust most have been taking advantage of your kindness, and sometimes the universe gives you the resources to do something about it. The reporters sensed a story brewing, pressing closer with their microphones. Can you elaborate on that? I have been living with my son and daughter-in-law for the past 4 years, paying them $1,100 a month in rent while providing unpaid domestic services. They were planning to move me to an assisted living facility because my presence in their home had become inconvenient. I could hear Natalie's sharp intake of breath from the doorway. But now that I have the means to live independently, I will be finding my own place, somewhere I can be a guest when I visit my son rather than a paying tenant in his home. Are you saying your own family was taking advantage of you financially? I looked directly into the nearest camera, thinking about all the other elderly people who might be watching, people who might be in similar situations with their own families. I am saying that family should be about love and respect, not business arrangements. And I am saying that it is never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter what your age. The questions came faster after that, but I had said what I needed to say. I got into my car and drove away, leaving Kevin and Natalie to deal with the media circus I had just created. In my rearview mirror, I could see Natalie frantically trying to manage the situation, probably spinning some story about misunderstandings and family dynamics. But the truth was already out there, being broadcast across Southern California, and I was just getting started. Thomas Rodriguez's law office was a welcome refuge from the media chaos. At 68, Thomas had the kind of calm, methodical approach that came from 35 years of helping people navigate life's complications. Margaret, he said, rising from behind his desk with a warm smile. Congratulations. Roberto would be so proud. Thank you. I settled into the familiar leather chair where Roberto and I had sat so many times discussing wills and insurance policies and all the practical details of a shared life. I saw the news coverage, Thomas continued, his expression growing serious. Quite a statement you made to those reporters. Was it too much? Not at all. Sometimes the truth needs to be spoken plainly. He opened a file folder and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Now let's talk about protecting your interests. Have you claimed the prize yet? I am planning to drive to Sacramento on Monday to meet with the lottery officials. But I would recommend taking the annuity rather than the lump sum for tax purposes, and we will need to set up some trusts, maybe a charitable foundation if you are interested in philanthropy. We spent the next hour discussing financial strategies, tax implications, and estate planning. Thomas explained everything in terms I could understand, never once suggesting that the decisions were too complex for me to comprehend. It was while we were discussing living arrangements that Thomas dropped his own bombshell. Margaret, there is something I need to tell you. Something Roberto made me promise to keep confidential unless specific circumstances arose. My stomach tightened. What kind of circumstances? If your family ever tried to take advantage of you financially. Thomas opened another file, this one thick with documents. Roberto was more aware of Kevin and Natalie's situation than you realized. What do you mean? He knew they were living beyond their means. He also suspected they were already planning to have you move in with them after his death, not out of love, but out of financial necessity. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Roberto knew. He hired a private investigator to look into their finances about 8 months before he died. He was worried about what would happen to you. Thomas pulled out a folder of documents. Kevin and Natalie are in significant debt, Margaret. Credit cards, business loans, their mortgage is underwater. They have been living on borrowed money for years. I stared at the papers, seeing columns of numbers that painted a picture of financial recklessness and desperation. Roberto wanted you to have this information if you ever needed it to protect yourself, Thomas continued. He also wanted you to know about the insurance policy. What insurance policy? Thomas smiled sadly. The one he took out specifically to ensure you would have resources if Kevin and Natalie became a problem. $600,000, paid directly to a trust account in your name. It has been sitting there earning interest for 4 years, waiting for you to need it. $600,000. Roberto had been protecting me from beyond the grave. He knew, I whispered. He knew this would happen. He loved you enough to prepare for it. Thomas closed the file gently. The question now is what you want to do with this information. I thought about Kevin standing in the doorway that morning, blocking my path while insisting he only wanted to help me. I thought about Natalie with her binders full of statistics about lottery winners going bankrupt, positioning herself as my savior while she had been bleeding me dry for 4 years. I thought about Roberto, who had spent his final months not just fighting cancer, but fighting to protect me from our own son. Thomas, I said finally, I want to have a family meeting. Tonight. I want Kevin and Natalie to understand exactly what their financial situation looks like, and exactly how much their mother-in-law knows about it. Are you sure? Once you reveal this information, there is no going back. I stood up from the leather chair, feeling stronger and more determined than I had in years. Thomas, I have spent 4 years being treated like a convenient source of income by people who were supposed to love me. My husband saw this coming and tried to protect me. I think it is time Kevin and Natalie learned what happens when you underestimate a Santos woman. The look of admiration in Thomas's eyes told me everything I needed to know. Roberto would indeed be proud. The family meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. I had spent the afternoon preparing with Thomas's help, organizing documents, and planning exactly what I needed to say. Kevin and Natalie thought they were coming to discuss my emotional outburst with the reporters and find a way to manage the media attention going forward. They had no idea they were walking into a reckoning. Natalie arrived first, armed with printed articles about lottery winners who had been swindled by family members and a laptop full of spreadsheets showing how they could properly manage my windfall. Kevin brought a bottle of wine and his most conciliatory expression. Mom, about what you said to those reporters. Kevin began as they settled into the main house living room. We understand you were overwhelmed. I was not overwhelmed, I interrupted calmly. I was finally telling the truth. Natalie opened her laptop with practiced efficiency. Maggie, we have prepared a comprehensive financial plan that addresses all your concerns while ensuring your long-term security. Before we discuss my financial security, I said, reaching for the folder Thomas had given me, I think we should discuss yours. I placed the first document on the coffee table between us. Kevin glanced down at it, and the color drained from his face. What is this? Natalie asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. It is a complete financial profile of your household, compiled by a private investigator your father hired before he died. I watched both of them go very, very still. He was worried about what would happen to me after his death, so he did some research into your circumstances. Kevin was staring at the papers like they might catch fire. Dad hired an investigator to spy on us. To protect me, which as it turns out was necessary. I pulled out another document. You owe $63,000 in credit card debt across 8 different cards. Your mortgage is underwater by $45,000. Kevin, your construction business has been operating at a loss for 18 months. And Natalie, your marketing firm owes $32,000 in unpaid taxes. Natalie's professional composure cracked completely. How dare you invade our privacy? The same way you invaded mine when you decided I was too incompetent to manage a lottery ticket I bought with my own money. I kept my voice level, almost conversational. For 4 years, you have been using my disability payments to service your debt while positioning me as a grateful dependent who should be thankful for your generosity. Kevin found his voice. Mom, everyone has financial challenges. Not everyone charges their widowed mother $1,100 a month to live as unpaid domestic help while planning to ship her off to a nursing home. I placed another document on the table. This is a breakdown of what my living situation has actually cost me versus what it would cost to live independently. You have been overcharging me by about $700 a month while extracting approximately $2,000 worth of unpaid labor. The silence that followed was profound. That is over $32,000 a year you have been taking from me, I continued. $128,000 over 4 years, from your own mother, while you were planning to isolate me further in golden years manner. Natalie was crying now, but I noticed they were the kind of tears people cry when they are caught, not when they are sorry. We never meant for it to be like that, Kevin said desperately. We needed help and you were family and you thought I was too old and too grateful to figure out what you were doing. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. But your father knew. He saw through both of you, and he made sure I would have the resources to protect myself when I finally realized what was happening. I placed the final document on the table. This is notification of a trust fund Roberto established for me 4 years ago. $600,000 earning interest, waiting for me to need it. He also left instructions with Thomas Rodriguez to monitor your financial situation and intervene if necessary. Kevin was shaking his head like he could make the truth disappear. I do not understand. Dad never said anything. 'Cause he hoped he was wrong about you. He hoped that when the time came, you would treat me with the love and respect he had taught you to show family. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Instead, you treated me like a business opportunity. Where are you going? Natalie called after me. To start my new life. I have put a deposit on a beautiful 2-bedroom condo at Sunset Ridge Senior Community. Full kitchen, private patio, my own parking space, and a monthly fee that is less than what I was paying to be your tenant. I paused at the front door, looking back at the 2 people who had taken advantage of my grief and loneliness for their own financial gain. Oh, and one more thing. Since you will no longer have my income to help with your expenses, you might want to start planning how you will manage that $63,000 in credit card debt and those unpaid taxes. I hear financial stress can be very challenging for families. As I walked out to my car, I could hear Natalie crying and Kevin trying to calm her down. But their crisis was no longer my problem. I had $75 million, a dead husband who had loved me enough to protect me from beyond the grave, and the rest of my life to live on my own terms. The next morning, Kevin showed up at my new temporary hotel room at 8 a.m. I had moved out of their garage the night before and was staying at the Holiday Inn while my condo purchase was being finalized. He looked terrible. Unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes red from what might have been crying or drinking or both. Mom, we need to talk. I was having coffee and reading the newspaper coverage of my lottery win. The headline read, "Local grandmother wins $75 million, exposes family exploitation." Good morning, Kevin. I did not invite him in, just stood in the doorway of my hotel room. Mom, please. Natalie is having a breakdown. She has not stopped crying since last night. We made mistakes, okay? We handled things badly. But we are still family. Are we? Course we are. You are my mother. Love you. Kevin, when you love someone, do you charge them rent to live in your garage? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from his childhood when he was caught in a lie. We needed the money, Mom. The business has been struggling, Natalie's firm is barely breaking even, and we have all these expenses. We thought since you were living here anyway. You thought you could exploit me financially while making me feel grateful for the privilege. That is not how we saw it. I stepped back into my hotel room. Kevin, in 30 minutes I am driving to Sacramento to claim my lottery prize. Thomas Rodriguez will be handling all my legal and financial affairs from now on. If you want to have a relationship with me going forward, it will be as my son, not as my landlord or financial advisor. What does that mean? It means that when I visit you, I will be a guest in your home, not a paying tenant. It means that when you visit me, you will come because you want to spend time with your mother, not because you want something from her. It means we start over with honesty this time. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. What if we cannot do that? Then I guess you will have to figure out how to pay your bills without my help. I closed the hotel room door and listened to his footsteps retreating down the hallway. Through the window, I watched him sit in his truck for 10 minutes before driving away. 2 hours later, I was in Sacramento, officially claiming my $75 million prize. The lottery officials were professional and efficient, walking me through the paperwork and tax implications. I chose the annuity option, which would pay me approximately $3 million a year for the next 25 years. More money than I could spend in a lifetime, certainly more than I needed to live comfortably and independently. The media was waiting when I left the lottery office. This time I was prepared for them. Mrs. Santos, now that you have officially claimed your prize, what are your plans? I am going to buy a beautiful home with a garden where I can grow the roses my husband loved. I am going to travel to all the places Roberto and I dreamed of seeing together. I am going to donate to charities that help elderly people who might be in situations similar to what I experienced. Are you planning to share your winnings with your family? I looked directly into the camera, thinking about all the other elderly people who might be watching, people whose own children might be taking advantage of them. I am planning to share my love and my time with any family members who want a genuine relationship with me. But I am done being anyone's source of income. Money cannot buy love or respect, but it can certainly buy independence from people who mistake you for a business opportunity. What advice would you give to other seniors who might be in similar situations? Know your worth. Understand the difference between family helping family and family exploiting family. And remember that it is never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter what your age or circumstances. 6 months later, I am living in my beautiful 3-bedroom house with the rose garden Roberto would have loved. Kevin and Natalie visit occasionally, and our relationship is slowly improving. They are seeing a financial counselor and working to address their debt problems without my subsidies. Some people have asked if I regret being so harsh with them, if I should have just quietly shared the money and kept the peace. But I think about Roberto, who loved me enough to spend his final months protecting me from this exact situation. I think about the 4 years I spent believing I was a burden, when I was actually the solution to someone else's financial problems. And I remember that sometimes the greatest act of love is teaching people to treat you with the respect you deserve. Roberto always said that justice delayed is not justice denied, just justice with better timing. As usual, my husband was absolutely right. Thanks for listening to my story. Do not forget to subscribe and feel free to share your own experiences in the comments. Remember, your voice matters, and it is never too late to stand up for yourself.